All right. What's up, everybody? All my people in Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, or at Staten Island, my home borough, Brooklyn. Back out with another video, and today marks the 40th anniversary of the release of one of the most popular and beloved movies of all time, Back to the Future. One of the best films of the 1980s, one of the greatest sci-fi films ever made, and one of the greatest movies of all time, period. You know, the legendary director Quentin Tarantino described Back to the Future in an old interview as a perfect movie. I don't know Tarantino's definition of a perfect movie, but I know mine. And Back to the Future is, to me, a perfect movie. Great acting from all the main cast, a very unique and original story, a great score, lines and scenes that stood the test of time, have been referenced throughout pop culture since the film's release. Just all around great film, perfect movie. Top 10 favorite movie of all time for me, Back to the Future. I'll probably do a video on that one day, my top 10 favorite films of all time. But Back to the Future is definitely in the top 10. Sometimes it's in my top 5. Now, I'm going to be going through overseeing my favorite scenes in this movie, and there are a lot of them, so get comfortable. Of course, see the opening here, Steven Spielberg presents, and of course, this movie was released through Amblin Entertainment, which was founded by the legendary Steven Spielberg, a Robert Zemeckis film, Back to the Future. Starring, of course, Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly and Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown. In the opening scene, we see Marty fucking around with the amplifiers. He's about to play his guitar, and he wants a very loud noise. And he strums his guitar, and the noise comes out of the amplifiers is so loud, Marty goes flying back and falls into a couch and knocks some shit down, and it falls on his head. Later on, he gets a call from Doc Brown about how he's going to need Marty's assistance at 1:15 p.m. at the Twin Pines Mall. And Doc Brown hears the clocks go off, and he tells Marty those clocks are always behind, and it's 8:25 a.m. And Marty realizes he's late, and that gives us one of those most iconic opening scenes in cinematic history. Marty grabs his skateboard and heads off to school, hanging onto the back of a pickup truck. And eventually, he switches to a Jeep that takes him to the school, where he's led in by his girlfriend Jennifer. You know, but it's too late. They're caught by the principal, who gives them both toddy slips. And the principal starts chastising Marty. You're going to be a slacker your whole life, McFly. You got nothing. And McFly has never accomplished anything at the school. You're a slacker just like your father, so on and so forth. Speaking of his father, we're introduced to him later on. His father, George McFly, who's a very skinny, wimpy, cowardly, pathetic, weak, quote-unquote man, who worked for his boss, Biff, who was also his childhood bully, who continues to bully and tease and taunt him and emasculate him in his own home. Of course, Marty does not like that. We're later introduced to the rest of the McFly clan. We see Lorraine McFly, Marty's very depressed, introverted, possibly alcoholic mother. His older brother, Dave McFly. And his sister, I believe her name was Linda McFly. Marty falls asleep even though the doc tells him not to, but he wakes up in time to receive the call from the doc and to head to Twin Pines Mall at 1:15 a.m., which he does. And the doc tells Marty to bring a video camera to record this historic moment. Doc Brown straps his dog Einstein to a DeLorean, and he controls the DeLorean through this remote. His remote control. He built a big-ass RC car. But there's no regular car. The car can time travel, as you see right here. Before the car hits Doc and Marty, it takes off. It heads into a couple minutes into the future. Excuse me. And Doc Brown tells Marty what he's done. He's basically invented time travel and used a time machine out of a car. And, Doc tells him, if you're going to time travel, do it in style. Doc Brown explains to Marty how it works. The red is your desired time, where you want to go. The green is the present time you're at. And the yellow is the time the time you departed. He records it and tells Doc Brown how he made it with plutonium and how he got it from some terrorists, some Libyans, I believe what he said they were. And Doc Brown noticed that the Libyans are arriving. He doesn't know how, but they found him. Pull out a gun. Doc Brown surrenders, throws his gun away, but the Libyans still shoot and kill Doc Brown, unfortunately. Marty yells, "No!" Marty heads into the DeLorean trying to escape from the Libyans, and he ends up traveling back in time, 30 years back in time to be exact, to 1955, where he crashes into a barn and a family finds him and they think he's some spaceman. The father gets the shotgun to shoot him, and, well, it doesn't work. Marty ends up driving off and escaping, and he realizes he's not in 1985 anymore. In the later scene, Marty's in a diner with a younger version of his pops, but he doesn't know that yet. In comes a younger version of Biff. Biff and his gang of idiots to once again bully and tease George McFly about, how George needs to finish his homework and not do it in his handwriting because then he'll get kicked out of school. Do you want me to get kicked out of school, McFly? Marty's standing there witnessing all this. He tries to convince his dad to not let these people bully him. Of course, he doesn't call him dad, but tries to convince George not to let these guys bully him and harass him. Later on, in a later scene, George was seen at the top of a tree spying on Lorraine, his crush, and Marty's mother. He falls. He's about to get hit by a car, but Marty saves him. The car was driven by Lorraine's father and Marty's grandfather. Later on, Marty awakens in Lorraine's bedroom, and Lorraine clearly has a crush on Marty. She took off his pants and calls the man Calvin because she thinks his name is Calvin Klein. George's father was perving. Marty's mom is perving. And in an earlier scene, Marty was walking with Jennifer, started checking out other girls. Whole family of fucking pervs. I'm just playing, but I'm saying. Anyway, Marty goes look for Doc Brown in 1955, and Doc Brown doesn't believe he's a time traveler until he convinces him by telling him the origin of the bump on his head. Marty plays the video for Doc Brown about how he invented time travel and how Marty got here and how Marty used to get back to 1985. And if he doesn't, Marty's going to be wiped out from existence. You see, the head of his older brother, Dave, has been wiped out of the picture. In a later scene, Marty's trying to help his father, George, win over his mother, Lorraine. Of course, Lorraine's taking a liking to Marty, so that's very tough. And Marty gives his father a bunch of lines to use and how to pick up Lorraine, his mother. And then Biff comes in. Biff tells him, "McFly, didn't I tell you I never want to see you in this diner again?" Marty trips Biff, and Biff stands up trying to intimidate Marty. Marty punches him in the face, takes off his crew, and runs. And one of my absolute favorite scenes from the movie, Marty escaping Biff and his gang. He basically invents skateboarding. He takes some 1955 looking bike, whatever it was, and makes a skateboard out of it. I don't know what it was, a scooter, whatever the hell. He makes a skateboard out of it. He grabs onto the back of a car and is escaping until Biff and his crew, they get a car and start following Marty. They gain up on him, but he's able to get away. They catch him again. They're about to run him over. Marty hops on top of the car and is able to land on a skateboard. That's of course gone under the car and on the other side safely. Meanwhile, they crash into a truck carrying manure. Later on, Lorraine followed Marty, creepy, just playing, to Doc Brown's garage, and Lorraine telling Marty. Lorraine wants Marty to ask her to the enchanted under the sea dance, and a man should be able to protect himself and the woman he loves. Can you imagine how creepy this shit would have been, bro? I would have taken a shower like, oh god, like my mom, a younger version of my mom is hitting on me. And Marty actually found her attractive. Marty was about to call her hot until he called himself. Okay, moving on to another one of my favorite scenes. Marty's in the cafe writing a letter to Doc Brown, trying to inform Doc of what's going to happen, how the Libyans are going to kill him. But Doc Brown doesn't want any part of it because he doesn't want to mess up the space-time continuum. Later on, Marty's in the car with his mom, Lorraine, who kisses him. Sweet home Alabama. Of the incest in this. She kisses him and is like, I don't know why, but kissing you is like I'm kissing my brother. And Marty says, yeah, something like that. All the time travel jokes in this were corny, but I thought they were funny. Later on, Biff pulls Marty out of the car, and he sees Lorraine, he takes a liking to her, and he goes into essay her. I can't say what I want to say, but he goes into essay her. If you know, you know. Marty gets beat up by Biff and his gang, and they stuff him into a trunk. And the gang tells one of the brothers to get his spook ass out of here. And all these brothers roll out of the car, and they scare and intimidate Biff's punk ass racist gang. Well, it was 1955. George is on the way to the car. George and Marty conspired for a way to win Marty over, or to win Lorraine over. But Marty's not in the car, and it ends up being Biff, and George becomes intimidated and scared. He's offering to help Lorraine, but he sees Biff, and Biff tells him to get out of here. Lorraine begs for help. George decides to help anyway, and Biff puts him in a submissive position. Lorraine tries to help, but Biff puts his hand in her face and pushes her to the ground, which angers and outrages George. And one of my favorite moments in the movie, George gets angry, balls his hand into a fist, and knocks the fuck out of Biff. Biff bitch ass got knocked out and is laying on the ground. George picks up Lorraine. Lorraine is clearly smitten, and they go inside and dance. Marty's playing the guitar. It's all for this brother who got his hand injured, and he starts singing Earth Angel. This is probably my favorite scene in the movie, to be honest with you. George and Lorraine are dancing, and George, even though he just knocked out his bully, is scared to kiss Lorraine for whatever reason. A guy basically pushes George out the way and takes Lorraine to go dance with her, and George stands up for himself. As this is happening, Marty starts disappearing, becoming weaker because he's about to get wiped out of existence. But George pushes the guy to the ground and continues to dance with Lorraine, and then eventually kisses her. And everything is returned to normal. Marty, his sister, and his brother are in the picture. Everything's good. His parents falling in love, and they start to date. George has a bunch of self-confidence. He's not a scared little coward anymore. And Lorraine's way more outgoing. And probably my favorite part of the movie, Marty starts playing Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry. And it's an iconic line, one of the most memorable lines from this movie. This brother here, his name is Marvin. Hey, Chuck, it's your cousin Marvin. Marvin Berry. You know that new sound you've been looking for? Well, listen to this. And it's Marty playing Johnny Be Good. Chuck Berry is considered the father of rock and roll. Of course, it was the 50s when rock and roll first got popping. Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Little Richard, all them cats, and of course the white boys who copied their whole style, like Elvis and Jerry Lee, Buddy Holly, and all those dudes. But this movie was my introduction into old rock and roll. This is when I discovered that blacks, that quote unquote blacks, not to get off topic, created rock and roll. This is when I discovered Little Richard and Chuck Berry and all those guys, and started listening to their music. This movie was my introduction, ironically enough. But Marty goes from Chuck Berry to Eddie Van Halen. He starts kicking over the speakers and making this stank face, and everybody's looking at him like he's crazy. And Marty tells him, well, you guys aren't ready for this, but your kids are going to love it. Anyway, back to the whole point of this movie, which is time travel. Marty meets up with Doc Brown, and they came up with their plan how to get Marty back to 1985. And Marty's trying to tell Doc about what happens on that day. Marty time travel back to 55, and Doc Brown says, no, we can't mess with the space-time continuum. It could have serious consequences, and he rips up the letter. As he does that, these cords become unplugged, and it's disaster. So Doc Brown hurries his ass up there, try to attach them back together. Meanwhile, Marty gets in the car and gets the DeLorean to the position where it has to be. He attaches the antenna to the top. He gets in the car. He starts wondering himself, why did Doc Brown rip up the letter? He doesn't want the doc to die, and I don't blame him. But then the car runs out of power. Marty starts to become frustrated. Me and Doc Brown is carefully easing his way over to the cord, to the plug, when this this piece of cement, falls, and the doc damn near falls and busts his ass, but he's able to hang on. Marty becoming more and more frustrated. He headbutt the steering wheel, and the car gets power. I was like, oh God, thank God this happened. Meanwhile, Doc Brown is about to plug it back together when they come across another problem. The cord's trapped under a tree branch, and Doc Brown ends up jerking it and unplugs from there. And he screams, "Oh, great Scott!" But he's able to get those plugs together. Then he falls down, but thankfully he's okay. He gets back up and tries to plug those together so the plan will come together. The lightning strikes. It travels through the cord. It ends up shocking Doc Brown, unfortunately. But it's able to work, and Marty's able to get back to 1985. Gets all the juice he needs to get back to the future. Pardon the pun. Doc Brown is shocked and amazed about what happened. Marty, back in 85, he sees that the Libyans are on their way to go kill Doc Brown. He tries to get back in the DeLorean, but it's 100% out of power. So he runs as fast as he can to Twin Pines Mall, but it's too late. The Libyans kill Doc Brown, but he sees himself able to escape in the DeLorean. He runs down there, check on Doc Brown, and starts crying again, but Doc Brown pops back up, and he's okay. He wore a bulletproof vest. And he hands Marty the note that he left him. He taped it back up. He's like, Doc, what all this about the space-time continuum? And Doc says, what the hell? I said, what the hell? Marty goes back home. He falls asleep. He wakes up. He thinks it was all some crazy nightmare. And he sees his brother and his sister are dressed in their Sunday best, and their house is way nicer than when he left. See his father way more extroverted, way more cool and confident. His mother's way more outgoing, not as depressed and introverted. You see old bitch-ass Biff waxing his dad's car. He tells Marty that Marty's car's all waxed up for tonight, his date with Jennifer. Marty sees that this fire-ass car, this fire-ass black truck. Jennifer shows up, and they embrace, and they kiss. And then just like that, the doc shows up and tells Marty that they need to go. It's your kids, Marty. Something's got to be done about your kids. Yes. And you see Marty and Jennifer sitting in the passenger seat, and Doc Brown ready to take off. He said, roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. And the movie ends, ending to a perfect ending to a perfect movie. Again, one of the greatest movies ever made. I don't care what anybody says. Back to the Future, I love this movie. If you've never seen this movie, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. Of course, I didn't go over every scene in the movie, but I went over my favorite, which was damn near every scene in the movie. But, great performance. Of course, this led to, Back to the Future Part 2 and Part 3 to cap off the trilogy. And they made Back to the Future a whole damn musical. One of the most beloved movies of all time, one of the greatest movies of all time. Happy 40th anniversary, Back to the Future. Thank you, Robert Zemeckis, Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Crispin Glover, Thomas F. Wilson, Steven Spielberg, everybody who worked on this movie gave us this masterpiece. One of the greatest movies of all time. It has stood the test of time. It still represents pop culture. Absolutely love it. The score is iconic. Tell me what you guys in the comments section down below. What's your favorite scene in the movie? Again, my favorite scene is the dance. When Marty's playing Johnny B. Good by Chuck Berry and Biff's able to finally stand up for himself, even though, he knocked out George. So why he was intimidated, George knocked out Biff. So why he was scared to kiss Lorraine, I don't know. But other than that, love that scene. That scene, of course, that scene where Doc and Marty were trying to get back to the future. Again, pardon the pun. So what you guys say in the comments down below. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. How Young Brother Grow on YouTube, and I'm gonna see you all.